We resume aboard the abandoned ship, with Zinnia and Pike stalking around the main deck, searching for a way inside. However, each door they find is either rusted shut or the entryways have collapsed, making it impossible to get in through them. This causes a scowl to cross Pike's hooded face, and he tells Zinnia they may have to start thinking of alternative ways to reach their goal. But before she can suggest anything, a fierce cry draws their attention. Rushing over to the edge of the deck, the pair witness Sharpedo launch from the water and soar overhead before crashing into the deck. As it comes to a stop, a trio of Team Aqua members leap from its back, those being Matt, Miz and Mast, who are attempting to act as a diversion for Ash and Amber. Pike recognizes Matt from his research into Team Magma's enemies, and sets his jaw, knowing that Matt alone is no pushover, but the admin +2 cronies could actually prove a challenge if he lets his guard down. Nonetheless, it is imperative that they retrieve the scanner, and so seeing no alternative, Pike sends forth his Altaria. Despite her distrust of Pike, Zinnia can't help but be impressed by the majestic pseudo-dragon as it spreads its cloud-like wings and lets out a magnificent caw, challenging the Team Aqua trio to face its wrath if they dare. However, Pike has no time for grandstanding, instead telling it to use mist to hide them. Altaria dutifully obeys, causing thick white mist to blanket the entire deck, cutting the attackers off from each other while giving Pike and Zinnia a moment to plan. Seeing that Zinnia is still looking at Altaria, her partner chuckles that she can't have thought she was the only one in Team Magma capable of harnessing the power of the dragon type, before saying that he's going to stay up here and deal with this lot, and he needs her to proceed with the mission alone and retrieve the scanner. Zinnia gives a terse nod of agreement, and so Pike has his Pokemon use Hyper Beam on one of the rusted doors, blowing it wide open. Without looking back, Zinnia scrambles through the hole and begins making her way down into the depths of the abandoned ship. Meanwhile, under the sea, another duo is desperately searching for a way into the ship. This time it is Ash and Amber, and unlike with the Magma pair, there is no unity here. As soon as they got underwater, the duo promptly split up, with Amber searching the front of the ship and Ash handling the aft as an excuse to get away from each other. At first, this yields no results for either, as it seemed like the vessels remained airtight, making this a pointless endeavour. However, just when Ash is about to suggest they return to the surface and join Matt and the others, he spots a hatch, so caked with grime and rust that he can hardly be blamed for missing it the first time. Swimming over, he begins to turn the release valve wheel, but even underwater, he lacks the strength to make it budge an inch under all that rust, and so, striking on a bright idea, calls forth Magikarp, gesturing it to do something to help. Unfortunately for him, the little orange fish just stares at its trainer blankly, until Ash once more tries to turn the valve as a demonstration. At last, Magikarp understands, and so tries pushing against the metal with all its might. This ultimately achieves nothing, though it does give Ash another idea, and so he undoes his bandana and ties one end to Magikarp while the other is tied to the release valve. He then makes a circular motion with his finger, which Magikarp is able to comprehend, and so begins attempting to swim in a circle around the valve. Between Magikarp pulling and Ash pushing, the duo do manage to start making progress, with the wheel slowly turning with an almighty creak that makes chunks of rust crack off and float away. Under his breathing mask, Ash gives Magikarp an encouraging look, but the small fish only responds with a look of terror, staring at something behind Ash. Spinning around, the young Draconid is able to dive out of the way at the last second, as Amber and his Sharpedo come barreling towards them. With a fierce crunch, Sharpedo slices the hatch clean in two, granting them access to the ship at last, though at the cost of the hatch now beginning to sink, with Magikarp still tied to it. The orange water type begins to panic as it is dragged towards the sea floor, and as Amber gestures for Ash to follow him and climb through the opening, our hero instead kicks off the bottom of the abandoned ship and dives deeper into the abyss. With a thud, Trainer and Pokemon are reunited as Ash grabs Magikarp in his arms. Desperately, he tries to start untying it, but his fingers feel clumsy under the water, and the matter isn't helped any by Magikarp's panicked flailing. However, not everyone shares Ash's dismay, and to several underwater Pokemon who hunt through sensing the vibrations in the water, all this movement is like a dinner bell. From a shadowy shelf on the sea floor, a dozen Tentacruel appear and encircle Magikarp and Ash, just as he manages to undo the knot around Magikarp's tail. The Tentacruel then leer menacingly at the duo, and Ash can't help but gulp. He knows enough about Magikarp to know that it will be next to useless in a battle, and he can't call in his aquaphobic Trapinch, meaning that as it stands, or swims, he's sunk. However, little does Ash know that Magikarp has a trick up its sleeve, one honed from a lifetime of cowardice, that none of its schoolmates have ever been able to imitate. And so, as the first tentacle reaches out to grab Ash, Magikarp slams into him with enough force that they both hurtle up towards the boat. Ash is understandably confused how a Magikarp can swim so fast, but Magikarp knows it's a secret technique, one that has saved its life countless times, and that is the ability to bounce itself through the water as though it were the air. Thanks to Magikarp's bounce attack, trainer and Pokemon alike burst through the open hatch, spraying Amber with water as he watches them. When Ash hits the cold metal of the floor, Amber pokes him with a toe, saying that he wasted time going back for that stupid fish, and that next time he does something like that, he will be left behind. Ash scowls at the bald man, but with nothing to say, just returns Magikarp to its ball and pulls his breathing mask up to get a better look at his surroundings. It quickly becomes apparent that they are in an airtight cabin with another sealed door, suggesting that maybe this room once connected to a submarine or other external craft. Thankfully, this door isn't rusted shut, allowing them to make their way into a corridor lined with more doors. Once more, the two rivals split up, with Ash going door to door in the direction of the back of the ship, while Amber does the same, moving to the front. This unfortunately brings our hero face to face with an irate Seviper when he opens a cabin door and finds it inside. But luckily, before Seviper can strike, he has Trapinch's ball in hand and lobs it into the room. The Fang Snake Pokemon interprets this as a challenge, and so lunges at the ground type instead of its trainer. But Trapinch is raring to go after so long cooped up in its ball, and so when Seviper's bladed tail swings down towards its head, it bites down, immobilizing its foe. It then opens its jaw wide, allowing Seviper to wriggle free, but this is only because it needs its mouth open to hit Seviper with something worse. With a thick squelching sound, Trapinch spits a torrent of mud, which strikes Seviper in the face. Hissing in agitation, Seviper tries to squirm away, but the mud from Trapinch's mud slap has obscured its vision, and so it can do little more but writhe until it collapses under the force of constant super effective damage. When Seviper has fallen, Ash steps into the cabin and pats his partner on the head, praising its strength and grit. Trapinch grins widely at the affirmation, then leaps up and chomps Ash's head. Naturally, Ash yells out in pain, and this draws Amber's attention. However, he is not the only one listening. Down in the cargo hold at the very back of the ship, Zinnia has just had her Bagon bash open a surprisingly clean box, plastered with Devon goods and precious cargo stickers. Inside is the scanner, which Zinnia picks up, thinking briefly about the box's strange condition, until a very familiar shriek fills her ears. All thought of the box then leaves Zinnia's mind, and she runs in the direction of the scream, wondering how Ash could be here when she didn't see him with the other Team Aquagrunts earlier. Skidding around a corner, she sees him and Trapinch inside a very muddy cabin, and when he sees her too, he beams. As the two friends reunite, they express relief that they were both able to infiltrate their respective villainous teams, but Zinnia asks why Ash and the Team Aqua group are here in the first place. Ash explains that Archie apparently got a tip-off about the location of the scanner, and so he sent them to retrieve it. Zinnia scowls that Pike told her the same thing about Maxie, and now it'll be much harder to complete their mission, since both their reports called this thing a prototype, so it's unlikely that there's a second one lying around. Ash opens his mouth to offer a suggestion, but before he can form words, it drops wide in horror as Amber stalks into view with a Volbeat by his side and a sinister leer on his lips. Seeing Ash's expression, Zinnia whirls round in time to see Amber and dive out of the way as he has Volbeat try to use Thief to snatch the scanner from her hand. Growling, Zinnia orders Bagon to use Ember, but Volbeat is faster, swerving out of the way and making another attempt at Thief. However, in its single-minded focus to acquire the scanner for its trainer, it is blindsided when a headbutt to the side from Bagon sends it tumbling back into the corridor. Seizing the offensive, Zinnia and Bagon chase after their opponent, leaving Ash and Trapinch alone with the dilemma of who to support. But our hero isn't given much time to deliberate, as a kaboom from down the hall forces him and his partner to check it out. What he sees is Bagon and Volbeat engaged in a beam clash with Dragon Breath and Signal Beam. However, far more terrifying is Zinnia as she stares down Amber with glazed eyes and a vacant but hungry grin on her lips. Ash knows exactly what this is, having studied it with Mama Asta, but never dreamed he'd see it in person. According to legend, some of the greatest Draconid warriors in history could enter a battle trance when faced with a mighty foe, and while in this state, would give their entire heart and soul to the battle, attacking unceasingly, no matter what their opponent threw at them. However, it was also foretold that such a mindset was dangerous, and could lead to a trainer pushing their Pokemon beyond their limits, and doing permanent damage in the process. Not wanting Zinnia or Bagon to get hurt, Ash reluctantly tells Trapinch to give Zinnia a little bite to snap her out of this before she goes too far. Since biting is its way of showing affection, Trapinch is happy to give the girl it considers a friend a playful nip, and so leaps over Volbeat and Bagon before locking its jaws around her head. As Ash had hoped, this brings Zinnia back to her senses, but what he didn't anticipate was the consequences of this. By bringing her out of this state so suddenly, Zinnia is off balance, and this seems to affect Bagon too, causing its resolve to falter, and Volbeat's signal beam to finally push through, and send the little dragon slamming into a wall where it slumps into unconsciousness. With Bagon out of the picture, Amber has Volbeat use Thief again, but Zinnia, even with a Trapinch covering her face, is able to lurch blindly to one side, sending her tumbling into what appears to be a walk-in refrigerator with a heavy vault-style door. Seeing an opportunity, Amber has Volbeat follow her inside and use another signal beam, though this time at the wall. Despite the thickness of the hull, Volbeat is able to punch cleanly through, causing water to flood in around them. Amber then slams the door shut, and jeers that if she wants to be difficult, he'll just have to retrieve the scanner from her corpse in a few minutes, before ordering Ash to come help him hold the door shut. Horrified at the result of his attempt to help, and imagining how scared his best friend, an aquaphobic Trapinch, must be, Ash refuses, yelling at Amber to open the door since their Pokemon are in there. This doesn't move Amber, who says that the Pokemon are their servants, and so should be honoured to die in the pursuit of their superior's goals. But this only makes Ash more furious, and he yells even harder that Amber is a monster, before looking around for some way to fix this. As the sound of running water, mixed with Zinnia banging on the door, and Trapinch screaming floods his ears, Ash starts to stress. Since Bagon is still unconscious, and Ash knows he probably couldn't take Amber in a proper fight, he is left with only one option, and it's a pretty dire one. Praying to the Dragon Lord to give him strength, Ash pulls out the only ball left on his belt and calls out Magikarp. When it appears, the little fish flops around and gasps a bit at being out of the water, but Ash doesn't have time to explain the confusing situation, and so instead begs it to do the thing it did to get them away from the Tentacruel, but this time on Amber. Remembering how Amber laughed at it, Magikarp is happy to get a little payback, especially if it's to help the kind human who saved it again, and so it uses Bounce to rocket up and slam into the back of Amber's skull. This in turn causes the first mate's head to jerk forward and smack into the very solid metal door, with enough force to leave an amber-shaped imprint even after he drops to the ground, unconscious. Calling Magikarp the best, Ash returns it to its ball before desperately yanking the door open, causing it to be drenched with water from the mostly submerged room, until a very frightened Zinnia and Trapinch wash into his arms. Pulling the pair away from the continual flood, Ash asks if they're alright, with Trapinch nipping his arm weakly to show that it's still shaken up, while Zinnia nods between bouts of coughing up water. As Ash hugs his starter close to reassure it and keep it out of the now pooling water, Zinnia returns Bagon to its ball, then checks the scanner. And thanks to Amber being as stupid as he is cruel, it is completely busted as a result of being submerged underwater. Cursing the bald man, Zinnia and Ash then attempt to stem the flow of water by closing the sealed door, but both suspect the metal will eventually buckle under the water pressure, and so time has suddenly become a precious and highly limited commodity. Zinnia tells Ash to follow her up above deck, but Ash shakes his head, saying that first he needs to get Amber, since he'll drown if they leave him. Zinnia spits that it's no more than he deserves after trying to drown her, but Ash refuses to consider the idea, adamantly stating that if Mama Asta was here, she'd save Amber, and so if he has any right to call himself the new Lorekeeper, he has to at least try to do the same. Zinnia can see that her best friend's mind is made up, so she tosses him the broken scanner, saying that Amber is going to make his life hell for attacking him, but at least if he brings this back, he might be able to reduce some of the blowback. Ash, in surprise, says that he thought she needed this, but Zinnia grins mischievously that she has an idea where to get another one, or at least the blueprints to build one, and with that, she is gone. Ash is disappointed that he didn't get a chance to say goodbye, or more importantly talk with Zinnia about her battle trance and warn her to be careful of slipping into it again. But sadly, there's no time to mope, as a terrible wrenching sound suggests that the hinges of the door are on the verge of giving out. Returning Trapinch to its ball at last, Ash bends down and with a grumble mutters that Amber better not make him regret this. Back on deck, Zinnia is the first to emerge, yelling to Pike that they need to go now. The man asks if she got the scanner, and she shakes her head, saying it was destroyed when some Team Aqua guys got her with a surprise attack, but in the battle, one of them blew a hole in the side of the ship, and now it's gonna sink. Under his hood, Pike frowns that he would have preferred to at least salvage the components, but he supposes there's nothing that can be done, and so whistles for Altaria. Only when the majestic cloudbird descends towards them does Zinnia realize that Pike seems to be alone. And when she comments on this, her partner waves a hand, saying that the three trainers were all bark and no bite, and that when he got serious, they hopped back in their little boat and fled with their tails between their legs. On the outside, Zinnia smiles, saying she's glad that Pike was able to handle himself, but internally she frets that if his teammates have gotten too much of a head start, then Ash may be stranded. However, for the sake of the mission, she can't let any of that worry show, and so simply takes Pike's hand when offered, and allows herself to rise high into the air when Altaria's back. A few hundred meters away, Matt, Miz and Mast watch the duo depart, feeling the same anxiety that Zinnia is for their comrades. When the ship begins to go down, their anxiety only increases, with Matt declaring that they're going back to find Ash and Amber, but Miz counsels him to wait, since if they go on board now, they might wind up getting trapped as well, so the best thing they can do is send their Pokemon, who are better equipped for underwater search and rescue. Mast concurs, and so a somewhat miffed Matt prepares to call his Pokemon out, until bubbles appear near the boat. Rushing over to see if this is their lost friends, the trio see a Sharpedo's fins slice through the water, then to their delight, recognize it as Amber's Sharpedo, with Ash and an unconscious Amber dressed in their diving gear, riding on its back. Matt lets out a whoop and rushes over to pull them both on board, while Miz and Mast seem just as pleased, with Mast handing Ash a towel and Miz giving him a pat on the back, teasingly asking if they've just been frolicking this whole time or whether they actually did their jobs. Ash grins that he managed to retrieve the scanner, but due to the chaos of the ship going down, it's been water damaged. Matt grunts that this is fine, since Mast is a techie sort of guy, so he should be able to fix that doodad up no problem. Mast blushes a little, and mumbles that he'll need to run some diagnostics back at the hideout before he can make any promises, but Matt just claps him on the shoulder, saying he has faith in him, and ordering Miz to take them home, while he tends to Amber. Meanwhile, up in the clouds, Pike and Zinnia debrief. Now that the danger has passed, Pike's displeasure with the outcome of their mission is evident, though it seems that most of his anger is turned inward, blaming himself for not going to retrieve the scanner personally. However, Zinnia flashes a toothy grin, saying that all is not lost, since she noticed something about the box the scanner was in. Pike's frown deepens a little, but he tells the girl to proceed, and is surprised when she mentions the Devon Goods stickers, and suggests that if they were the manufacturers, then they should have the blueprints, which the two of them can steal. Pike admits that he hadn't thought of that, but he supposes that those could be used to build their own scanner, which makes Zinnia grin and tell him to get out that device he used back on the ship to find the Devon Goods headquarters. This makes Pike chuckle ever so slightly, and he says that he already knows where the Devon Corporation is located, since it's where his Pokénav, or that device, as she calls it, was built. Though Zinnia is no fan of his patronizing tone, she can't help but admit that this is a stroke of luck, and so tells him to have Altaria take them there at once. It takes the rest of the day and late into the night for the duo to arrive in Rustboro City, and by extension the Devon Corp HQ, and this is only thanks to Altaria flying at top speed the entire way. As they land on the building's roof, Pike expresses admiration that Zinnia was able to endure the high-speed ride without being sick, but the girl just grins to herself, remembering her years of riding on Latios's back. Now compared to that, Altaria's speed felt like a pleasant stroll, but not wanting to share anything of the sort with Pike, she instead deflects, praising Altaria's stamina for being able to maintain the pace for so long. Pike gives what Zinnia can see as his first genuine smile as he pats the pseudo-dragon's neck and says that Altaria is actually the newest member of his team, but he's been working hard with it to build up strength and endurance, and it seems to have paid off. He then returns it to its ball and approaches the rooftop door. Pressing down hard on the bar to open it, Pike and Zinnia's ears are assailed by a horrible screeching as it seems that their entrance has triggered an alarm. Scowling, Pike kicks open the door and yells for Zinnia to follow him before running down the stairs. Zinnia follows and soon finds herself and her partner staring down a security guard who seems intent on blocking their way forward. However, Pike seems undeterred, so just yells at Zinnia that this time she can be the distraction while he gets the prize. Then, in an impressive display of athleticism, the male grunt runs forward and jumps up, pushing himself against one of the corridor walls, allowing him to springboard off it and leap over the guard's head before landing with a roll which quickly transitions into a sprint. Yelling, the guard tries to stop him, sending out a Manetric, but Zinnia knows what she has to do for this plan to work, and so brings out Bagon, trying to get the guard's attention with a Dragon Breath. This strikes Manetric hard in the flank, achieving the desired result and bringing her back into focus. Deeming her the most pressing threat, the guard has Manetric retaliate with a Thunder Fang, but this gets Zinnia's blood pumping, and she orders Bagon to tank the hit while using Headbutt. Bagon obeys, rushing in and lodging its rocky cranium in the electric type's mouth. Zinnia then yells to keep going and smack its hard skull into the electric type's soft palate, forcing Manetric to release Bagon and open its mouth wide in pain. Feeling an unexplainable and contradictory mix of giddiness and utter zen, Zinnia knows exactly what she must do to win, as if someone else is laying it all out for her, and so orders Bagon to launch a full-force Dragon Breath down Manetric's throat. Keeping its usual stoic face, if Bagon has any misgivings about such a savage order, it gives no sign as it does exactly as commanded, blasting Manetric from inside and causing an explosion in its gullet that sends it rocketing backwards into a wall. The guard then scurries away, retrieving his friend and going to get help and reinforcements, and it is only when he is out of sight that Zinnia begins to notice how everything else had dimmed during the battle and only seems to come back into focus now. It is also only now that she can see what a bad state Bagon is in, having had no chance to really recover from its battle back on the ship, aside from a little rest. Picking it up, she promises not to make it fight anymore today if she can help it. However, this promise is tested almost immediately. Rounding a corner, Zinnia and Bagon find themselves ambushed by a dozen guards and their Pokemon. Sighing that this feels strangely familiar, she decides to take a leaf from Amber's book and tells Bagon to use Dragon Breath, but this time on the floor. Bagon in turn belches a torrent of draconic energy, which melts the linoleum, and without hesitation, the girl drops down, finding herself in what appears to be a lab inhabited by a single terrified scientist. Up above, the guards yell orders to each other about splitting up and trying to block her escape, with the sound of hammering boots telling her that most of them are heading for a stairwell down to this level. Looking around for anything that might give her a chance to escape, her eyes fall upon an unfamiliar model of Pokeball on the cowering scientist's bench, and she orders him to give it to her now, knowing that whatever it is, it probably has better odds of lasting in a fight than her poor beaten Bagon. Meekly, the scientist protests that Project Alpha Omega isn't ready yet, and it's too volatile, but when Zinnia gives him the same look Mama Asta would use when she and Ash were acting out, he quails and hands the ball over with a fear-filled squeak. At this point, the guards have reassembled with a few blockading the door, while the rest storm inside, ordering Zinnia to come quietly, since they don't want to hurt her. Zinnia sighs that she doesn't want to hurt them either, but it seems they're at an impasse, and her goals are too important to be thwarted here. So, with a single silent prayer to the Dragon Lord, she throws Project Alpha Omega's ball, and awaits the appearance of a Pokemon that may prove instrumental in deciding the fate of the entire Hoenn region. And that's where we'll leave things. What is Project Alpha Omega? Will Zinnia and Pike manage to complete their mission, bringing them one step forward to the resurrection of Groudon? And what will Amber do to Ash when he finally awakens? Find out when the journey continues.